All right, everybody. Here we are, day 2. The struggle is real. This is me, raw, real, and then the flesh. A different side of me. Last time you saw me a little scruffy. I come to you as I am. That day I didn't have much going on. Today I had to go into work. Not plugging anything, but I am in real estate and I am starving. It's been a great first year, but not to the point that it's paying the bills right now. So, it's just another day, though, in the life of the Lord, waiting on His divine providence, and He always will. So, again, I'm not here to give my sob story. It's not a sob story. It's a story of enlightenment. It's a story of reflection and awaiting, patience, perseverance, getting through this as a son of God, a man of God. And like I said before, I hope to never be an adult of God, but in an intimate relationship with Him. And so that's not exactly what I'm here to talk about today. Today I'm going to talk about what's my life from beginning to where I'm at now, and what that's meant with God and how we've come through to today. Today I had a word. I was struggling a little bit. I told you, I have a court date coming up on the 20th of October. And, with that, we're not perfect, right? So even though I have a strong faith in God and in His divine providence, I still struggle with this despair, what's going to happen, and worry, despair, doubt, things that we try to overcome on a daily basis. And, the struggle is real, right? That's what I've been saying about this the whole time. And to go back into the beginning, as young as I can remember, I have faint memories of my father. I know him better now. But from the age of about 2 to 8, I didn't know my dad. There was supposed falling outs between my parents, and both sides will say one thing or the other about the other, but I'm not condemning them either. I forgive them for being human in their youth, and what emotions and things, as we grow, we get a better handle, so we would hope, on them. But some things are life-shattering, and it's times when we get down that we have to pick ourselves back up. Hopefully what we're called to do is remain steadfast, remain on an even keel. It's called mildness. And in that mildness, we are called to remain steady, not waver. I had a friend who's recently deployed, and this is his first deployment, being married to his wife. They're not young by any means. They're still young, but I'd say they're in their mid to late 30s, and this is their first time being married and being apart. And with that, his wife is having some just normal, missing him, wishing he was here, going through a little bit of hard times, and she is strong in her faith, though, so she is an overcomer. And they had asked for prayer, and my prayer for them was that this time would help them grow and persevere and become stronger in relationship, not only with each other, but with God in that relationship, and that they would be like a sword who's put in the fire and beaten with the hammer. You got to go through the fire. You got to get beaten down every once in a while to become stronger, to become sharper. And then also that they'd be like a ship, in the sea, this ship is just so big that no wave, and even if it was, the bow goes so deep that that they would not be tossed and turned. They'd remain steadfast in that. So I pray for them. I do. I pray for a lot of people going through struggles right now. that God would see them through, and He will, as long as we put our faith in Him. And even if we don't, He's always finding reasons to prove Himself to us. But as I go back in the beginning, my dad was not around for the first couple of years. Part my mom's fault, part his fault. But like I said, I'm not, blaming them. I am merely saying that we are all human, and a whole life is a struggle. So in this time, I also moved to live with my grandparents. Some of my earliest memories are of my grandparents, and they have been a blessing. They have been the guidance into faith that was there from the beginning. And God put them in my life, I believe. I believe everything happens for a reason. And God put them in my life to get me to the points that I am now, where I could remain steadfast and have a relationship with God, because there was a lot of turbulence in my youth. My mom's first boyfriend that I knew when she was with him was very abusive and had his own issues, and like I said, I've forgiven him too, but he was unstable, and it was unstable upbringing. So in this, I've had a lot of time to rely on God, a lot of time to reflect and be reliant on His divine guidance and providence in all things. And I'm grateful for all that. I honestly am. Without having gone through the struggle and still going through the struggle, I wouldn't have a relationship with God probably, because I wouldn't know what it means to have to rely on Him, to be strong in Him, or Him be the strength in me, rather. And we constantly strive to become deeper in relationship with Him, and sometimes we turn the other way, and then He is trying to find us, He knows where we're at, but trying to find us in that darkness, or help us find ourselves in that darkness and bring us back out into the light, trying to turn us, because sometimes we'll get lost. We'll get so far away that we can't hear the Lord's call, because it is a faint whisper. And the call of the world, like I said before, is a lot louder, a lot more hard to resist, because it's so prominent. And from the age of 2 to 8, I didn't really know my dad. My mom was involved with my sister's dad, and I'm glad that he was a part of our life too. He taught me a lot of things, how to work hard, and for that I'm grateful. And have a sense of humor in certain things when you're working, and be a jokester about it. And we tease each other while you're working. He showed me a lot of things that were positive, even though, there was negative. And same with my grandparents. They've had their times where they've had their negative attributes. But I'm not here to point fingers at anybody or call everybody out on their negative attributes. I'm here merely to tell you my story. And so God, I knew how to recite my prayers at 3 years old. And I had a strong faith in that, even at 3 years old, that God was real. And with that, He has continuously showed Himself to me from that time on. My grandfather was a shining light in my life, I'll tell you. He is my number one, I guess I'd say, male role model. And my father is a great male role model in my life now. We have a very good relationship, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I was able to spend time with my grandfather, who didn't have any sons of his own, so it was kind of good for both of us to be able to grow together. And a lot of my humor I get from him, a lot of my faith I get from him, but God ultimately has shown me Himself through many different times in my life. So I lived in Florida when I was about 3. We moved down there. My grandpa told me a story one time where we were traveling, and he had to stop and rest. We were driving a big, I believe it was a Penske truck, I think, if I remember correctly. It was a big yellow truck, as far as I know, moving stuff down to Florida from Michigan. And my grandfather had to pull over on the side of the road, or pull over I thought it was in a Waffle House parking lot, maybe somewhere down Kentucky, Tennessee, I want to say. I'm not exactly specific on geography at 3 years old, How can I remember exactly? But I have these vivid memories of this time spent with my grandfather traveling, and we stopped, and he said he took a good 3-hour nap, and I sat there and was patient and quiet at 3 years old. The attention span of a 3-year-old, right? You'd be surprised. But no, I don't know. Maybe I was sitting there talking with God at that point in time. I'm not sure. I don't remember it that vividly, but I do remember bits and pieces. And then we moved to Florida, and there I stayed with my grandparents for some time, and eventually my mom came down and got me and moved us back up to Michigan with her new boyfriend, who shortly thereafter had my sister, Tanya, and then from her was also my sister, Heather, a few years after that. And then my dad had another daughter before all that happened with my other two sisters, Sarah. And then after after Sarah, rather, I didn't know him, but I had a brother named Sean. And then years later, my baby brother Donovan is now 18, making me feel old. But these are the people that I know as biological siblings. Now I have step siblings as well, and many of them, and I'm blessed for every single person that God has put in my life. Now, long story short, get to a point where as a teenager, I knew God. I said, there was a lot of times for revival and growth with Him and reliance on Him, reflection, and get to a point when I'm a teenager and I meet a group of friends and they used to call me goody goody Christian boy, and I was okay with that. But then the enemy had to come at me a little different way to kind of shake my faith, if you will, and tell me that well, I'm just too annoying. I'm intense. I believe so heavily in this, but people can't understand it. The funny thing is now a lot of these friends are coming to Christ themselves, which is awesome. And I pray for all my friends that are going through the struggle with coming to Christ, and those that don't know Him yet, that we would all be there at some point. But kind of felt singled out. That was part of the problem. By the time I was in 12th grade, I think I'd gone to 15 different schools, because my mom was constantly running from her abusive ex and getting back with him, and then running and getting back with him. The phrase goes, the hell you know is better than the hell you don't, which I'm glad that they've both overcome that. He's in a better relationship now. She's in a better relationship now. Both toxic in their own rights, but we're all human, you know what I mean? But they're better for each other in the different relationships they're in, the people that they're with. And my dad has been remarried a couple times, and every person that God's put in my life through them, I'm grateful for too. But so we moved around a lot, so I didn't make friends well. I made friends quick, but not a lot of friends. People singled me out as the new kid all the time. So a lot of that reliance on God. I was lonely, so I had to rely on God to be my friend in a lot of that, and He did. He guided me, talked to me, walked with me, and let me know that He was still always there. And He has molded me to who I am today. Imperfect. I am not in any way the moral perfect being that we would look at to say that this is exactly how we want to be. No, I'm talking to you about being Christ-like, moving towards trying to be what Christ called us to be. And that's what these talks are about. So again, this is me, raw, real, in the flesh, and my struggle, and how I've overcome certain things, and how I've been guided through certain things. Now, went through the youth, grew up, started smoking pot as a teenager, drinking as a teenager. Nothing really harder than that. Thank God I have a lot of friends that have done some things, and I've been around some things that were really hard. But fortunately, I was guided out of them. I had friends that said, no, you don't do this. You don't want to do this, you know. And I believe that was God speaking through them to kind of say, my call for you is something different. You know, I have a plan for you, and yeah, you're drinking a little bit, and you're smoking a little bit of pot, but I need your mind unclouded from other things. And for all you out there that have used harder drugs, I feel for you. You know, I have a lot of friends who have fallen into deep addiction and overdose and died, and it's a scary path. And I pray for you. I really do that you would find peace and love in God to overcome these things. Now, when I was about 19, after graduating high school, I had traveled out to this convent in Amarillo, Texas. They're called Disciples of Our Lord Jesus Christ. It's actually Channing, Texas. It's a very small area, but right across the highway is a place called Boys Ranch. I don't know, maybe some of you have heard of it, where they take wayward boys and they get them into families. Here's part of my wife and my dream, too. Eventually, we'd like to build this self-sustaining farm where we can adopt children, kind of like this was, but where we can adopt children who are too old to get adopted by most families, because most families want young children. And are afraid that older children come with too much damage, you know. But I don't believe that at all. I believe God can work miracles in all of us. So my wife and I have a lot of love to share. Well, okay, going back to being at this convent in Amarillo, Texas, I was there, still a virgin. I believed in saving my virginity till marriage. It didn't last, but I believed in that. Raising up in this life with God, I did like girls. As I spoke in the last one, I believe, I felt calling to be a priest from a young age, or a preacher of the word from a young age, a minister, if you will, a sheep lighting other sheep to the shepherd. But I liked girls. I really did. I liked girls a lot. I mean, you know, women are beautiful, and all of them. Really, and I don't like all of them. I love my wife, but all women are beautiful. All men are beautiful, and they're right. You know, we have this inner beauty that somebody is meant to recognize. Whether our outward appearance might be the quote unquote appeal of what our society would put it as. I'm not a skinny guy by all means. You know, I don't think I'm bad looking, but I don't look at myself in that way. I have my insecurities as well. You know, I think we're all insecure in one way or another, but we find that security through God to know that it's our soul that we need to work on the beauty of, and that will be reflected outward to others regardless of how physically appealing we might be. You know, that shouldn't be a factor. It shouldn't be a factor. It's not a factor in God's kingdom. So it shouldn't be a factor in our normal society, honestly. But unfortunately, you know, image is what they say everything, but only to the world, not to Christ. Your soul is everything, and the love that you can share with that is everything. So with that said, I was doing a lot of meditation and prayer at that time when I was out in the desert, living on this convent, doing grounds. Funny thing, before that, I was homeless. I was living out of people's sheds that would let me live in there during the winter in Michigan. You know, so it was rough. But my grandparents, I moved with them out to this convent where I was helping them do grounds, and at that time I was allowed to do a lot of meditation in the midst of nowhere, if you will. It's in the desert of Texas, the high plains area of Texas. You think of plains, you think of flowing grass, but This is very kind of desolate sand, rocky desert. But it's beautiful too. It's really beautiful, and its own majestic beauty. God made this earth beautiful. Even sand dunes, are beautiful, but there's not much to them, right? It doesn't have to be. There's a depth there that only God knows, and that some of us will be revealed to it. Either way, so out in the desert, it's funny, the Lord calls you to the wilderness sometimes to really work on you. So I was able to meditate. I was able to spend time in meditation and prayer with the Lord. And in that time, I'd been letting go of a lot of things that I was holding on to, a lot of sin, a lot of immorality, that lust and anger and just name it. We all go through these different patterns of these different sinful thoughts, and I was letting go of them. I was making a moral inventory, if you will, and I was asking God to relieve these things from me. And as I was clearing out the closet, bringing those skeletons out, dusting the cobwebs off, and kind of trying to purify myself, I had an encounter with a negative entity, if you will. I believe that there's a very real world of spirit, and that there's negative and there's positive, if you will, demons, angels, and with that we go through our spiritual battle. This is what creates the struggle. So as I was clearing these things out one night, I was meditating on it, and I closed my eyes, and when I closed my eyes, I saw this image looking at me. It was a golem from the Lord of the Rings type figure, but much darker and not short and kind of bent, hunched over, but just flesh, no hair, dark, big eyes, and staring at me. And as I was letting go of these things, I just saw it just stared at me, and then it turned around and walked away from me, as if I had let go of this demon, if you will, from my life. I had been relieving it. Now, if you know anything about demons, they will come back, and they'll come back stronger, because they are ultimately trying to fight for your soul. That's a spiritual battle, and our struggle, right? So we have to every day try and prepare ourselves for that battle, and eventually try and win the war. In that time as well, I was doing a lot of praying for my future spouse. I had some different purity lessons and talking about, if you're preparing to possibly get married one day, even if you don't know your spouse, you should pray for her. Because God has a plan for you to be with somebody, and you should pray for her soul as well. And hopefully she's praying for yours. So I was praying for that. And at that time, one day I was just sitting there at the table, and this image popped in my head. These are visions the Lord was giving to me, and it was of a dry, parched land, cracked like a desert that had water sitting there, and then it just dried up, and you get these big cracks in it all around, and this is this dry, parched land that's lacking water. And in the middle of it appeared this thick base root, and from it started to spread out these thick roots, but they weren't nearly as thick as the base was. And from them were smaller roots until it covered this whole land. And then the next image, it just kind of cutscene to the next image, right? And it was like the side of a hill with flowing grass and wildflowers, if you can imagine that. And the Lord quickly allowed me to discern, which is one of the gifts of the Spirit, fortunately. It was that He blessed me with at that moment. I don't have it all the time, but He allowed me to discern that vision. And He showed me, He said, this is going to be you and your spouse's relationship. This dry, parched land is the world we live in. It is dry. It is needing to be quenched with thirst, this love, Christ's love, this love that comes from Christ. And you and your spouse, I will bring you together as this thick base root that can't be removed, right? And from that, it's going to spread. It's going to spread. The ones that are closer to you and feel that love of Christ through you are going to feel the most of it. But then from them, it'll spread out. It's almost like something as it shelf life. A shelf life of something, over time it will depreciate, right? But not so much that it's going to go away, but so much that it's going to continue to spread. It's going to continue to spread out until it covers this whole land, and you're not even going to see the root anymore. You're not going to see the root. It's just going to be flowing grass and wildflowers and beauty and simple beauty in this world. And as you know, it's a beautiful image. Everybody looks at beauty in their own way, but that green flowing grass in the wind, and it's just a peace and a calming and a very, very beautiful little wildflowers popping up here and there, right? It was really beautiful. But he told me this would be you and your wife's love, and it's going to spread. So back to this self-sustaining farm kind of thing, and adopting children who are too old to get adopted. Some of these things have been revealed to me more frequently or more recent, and I am piecing things together. The Lord will reveal things to us in His time, and in the time that we will most be able to understand it, or be able to look toward it and say, well, that's not too far off. I could definitely live that dream, Lord. I mean, anything that you call me to do, I will live. But He won't give us more than He won't give us more than we can handle all at once. So he was telling me, though, that this would be you have all this love, and all these kids that are too old to get adopted. 1 in 4 kids in foster care end up in jail or prison, and those are not great odds, especially with the number of kids that are in foster care. So I think it's good that the Lord has kind of showed us this with this idea of a self-sustaining farm, like Boys Ranch, kind of, where we are adopting children in and giving them some life experience. Obviously, the self-sustaining farm, it's going to need to have people to work on it, but we're not looking for this to be like a slave camp kind of deal. Come and work if you want to. If you don't want to, we still love you. That's the point. We have all this love to share, and we want to share it. Now, to work and to get some life experience and get an idea of what it means to reach a goal and have somebody be able to account for that is something that I think these kids that get out into foster care, they don't see that. They don't have that. So I think this would be beneficial to them. But like I said, initially, we'll adopt one child. This child will feel special because he's the only one. She is the only one, and this child will be able to come to it because they want to be involved, right? But as you get more children in, you're going to have these kids that feel like they're out of place. And with that, eventually we'll just love on them and not pressure them into wanting to do anything, but it'll come that they'll see what it means for these other kids to be involved, and they'll want to grow to that. And, there will be struggles, and we're all called to bear our cross. And thank God for that. I'd rather, I don't know, I'd rather not struggle, I guess you'd say, but I'd prefer the struggle, because without it, I don't rely on God, and I need that. I need to rely on His divine providence, and I'm constantly seeking Him, but I fall too. I'm not perfect. Like I've said, I'm a sinner, and less than a month ago, I was getting a DUI. So, I'm not saying that I'm perfect in this, okay? I know what the Lord has called me to. Shortly after that vision, the Lord showed me who my wife would be. I think I discussed this last time, but I'm going to reiterate on it. He showed me who my wife would be. He did not show me her facial appearance. So pretty much, if you can imagine, this is what I saw. Not this, but, she's much more beautiful than me, thank God. But I didn't see her face. I saw hair, color, physique, skin tone, a little bit of physique, like I said, height included in that, and he said that her beauty would only be matched by her outward appearance, telling me that she would be this beautiful soul that I am placing with you, your helpmate, to advance my kingdom and to love each other and to overcome all these things. So with that, I left the convent. I moved back home to Michigan, and months later, this girl texted me, like I told you last time, just out of nowhere. Never had my phone number saved in her phone. My little sister called me from it, but never did she save it. And this girl called me thinking I was a different Joe. How does this happen? I think this is divine appointment, if you will, And from then, we've been almost inseparable. Like, we've had our times where we've fallen out, but we felt that distance, and I've deployed a couple times, and that distance has made us stronger. And I'll tell you, though, my faith was really strong up until 2011 when I went to Afghanistan. I started struggling with faith, and it was not so much like, man, how can a God allow this to happen? There's, man does this to himself, and even though the Lord allows it, we're called to all be beacons of light in this dark world, So it's not like I'm thinking that this is just the most horrible situation that could ever be. There's been worse throughout history, So it is what it is a military phrase, right? But it's all to some purpose. What is that purpose? We won't know. We won't know until the end and when it's all revealed. But at this point in time, I was just struggling with, I was under a lot of pressure, a lot of pressure because I was a young guy, a newer guy out there in the Afghanistan with all these crusty old master sergeants and stuff, and I got a lot of pressure from one of the master sergeants, and it's made me stronger today. But at that point in time, I did not like him. I'll tell you right now, he was not my friend. I mean, we worked closely together, but there was many days when I thought very negatively towards him. But the point is, though, I started talking to these Muslims. Our interpreter was Muslim, and he was telling me how, because Isaac, who is Abraham's son, who the Jewish people believe to be the chosen son of Abraham, to carry his birthright, because he was born from Abraham and Sarah. So Abram and Sarai, when God breathed his life into them, became Abraham and Sarah at the initial covenant, the first covenant relationship with God. But Ishmael, the firstborn, who was born of Sarai's handmaid, is who the Muslims, those of Arabic descent, are descended from. And listening to them, they believe a lot of the same things that the Jewish people believed, but they believe that Ishmael is the one that is to carry the birthright, promised land, all that comes with it, and Isaac is not, whereas the Jewish believe that Isaac is and Ishmael is not. Now, as you know, as Christians, we've derived from the Jewish sect of things. So we believe that Isaac, of the lineage of Isaac, we've fallen into line with Jesus Christ coming, King David, Moses, all these lineage has cycled down to where we're at today in Christianity. So, but at that time I was like, are you serious? This is all this fighting in the Middle East, all this tension in the Middle East is a 6,000-year-old sibling rivalry. This is what we're fighting over? This is what we are, all wrapped up about? This is when I started losing my faith in Christ. I started the Muslims believe that Christ was a prophet. This is why it can be kind of attractive to Christians, because you're like, well, I could see that. I can see that. Why not? Why not? Christ is a prophet, right? Maybe there wasn't divinity in that, but that's not what the Bible says. That's not what all of these prophecies throughout the Bible have led up to. But then the Muslims believe that they should read the Torah, and they should read the Christian Bible, and then they should read the Quran, and that this is kind of a pattern leading up to where they're at now with Muhammad being the last prophet, and and Allah being God. And I'm not on here to bash Islam either. Actually, the word Islam means submission to God, which is a very powerful statement. But I'm also not saying that I believe in Islam either as the guy. There's a lot of things that have been used for wrong in that religion as well. The Christianity as well, Judaism maybe. I don't. I try to think throughout history where they persecution. Obviously, they follow the law too closely, and they would stone people over things that today we would think is normal behavior, if you will. But like I said, though, as we fall down through these lines, I was like, so this is just sibling rivalry. These guys are fighting for the past 6,000 years because of a sibling rivalry. And this is where I also started to kind of lose my faith in Christ. And I fell off of that for a while and started sympathizing with Islam. I didn't start practicing Islam, but I just started considering the thought that maybe that is, in fact, the truth. But because they recognize Christ as a prophet. So here I am, falling away from my faith, which I am now back at, thank God. He brought me back. And for 2 years, I drank very heavily coming back from Afghanistan because of high pressure, heightened state of awareness that I couldn't let go of, situations that we came through that could have gone bad, other people that died around us, and a lot of this just was like really, really heavy on me. For a while, I to this day, actually, I'd like to say I've overcome everything, but to this day, I can't be in heavily crowded areas. I have bad anxiety with it. But like I was saying, so come back drinking like a lot every day for 2 years straight, 3 40s of Bud Ice, and then when that became too little, I started buying those Lime-A-Ritas, the big ones, when they started coming out, and eventually there'd be many nights or mornings when I'd wake up from the night before and we'd have a broken door to a closet because I fell into it, or a broken ironing board because I fell into it, and I just was like, man, this got too bad. Well, I ended up deploying again. I volunteered, took somebody else's deployment because it would have been a bad situation for them and for their children mainly, if I hadn't. And every time I got ready to deploy, I stressed. I would lock myself in dark rooms and just tell my wife that she's better off without me. She should leave me and find somebody else. This really weighed on her heavily, and it hurt her. And I'll go back, like tech school, I was living in the world as well in my technical training, and I had an affair on my wife. And I'm not proud of that either, but all this is part of the testimony, overcoming these things that have been a weight on, that have added more weight onto our souls, and realizing that we are forgiven, we aren't condemned. Well, when I went to Qatar, me and my wife went through a separation, and at that time, she also found herself trying to find hope in someone else, and trying to find relief for me in someone else, because my drinking got out of control. My drinking, even while I was over there, I was drinking 3 beers or whatever, 3 drinks a day, but still those 3 drinks were creating anxieties in me, and I was putting that weight back on her, and from 8,000 miles away. And with that, she was like, she had this dream that the Lord was telling her to let me go. And And so she did. She did what she thought she was being told to do, and I believe she was too, because at that point, I didn't realize it, but I had fallen so far away from my faith that it reminded me of the promise of God for who I would marry, and that I had found her, and that what our love would be, and I didn't, realize what was going on until that happened, and I got down on my knees and I said, Lord, what's going on? You've been taking care of me my whole life. You've been wiping things away so that I had a pretty straight path. I mean, the struggle was there, but you told me this was happening. Everything you've told me has come to fruition, and now it's falling apart. It's going away. Something isn't right. And then it snapped. Like, is this my faith in Christ? Is this my faith in your only Son that you sent? The Word, made flesh and dwelt among us. Is that it? Is that it? Because I got down on my knees right then and there, and I said, I prayed. I said, Lord, this is if this is it, I am coming back to Christ. I am coming back to Christ as soon as possible. And with that, my leadership, my captain, said, I want to take you to this Friday night service. It's a praise and worship service. It's, just people talking about the things that the Lord's doing in their life. And as I was sitting in that service, I walked in, sitting in there, and I'm not one to get up and speak in front of people, right? That's why we're doing this YouTube. But, God will give you strength where He feels that you need it. So I was sitting there, and people were going up and giving their testimonies, and something was just pulling me up to the front, and I went up there, and I got up and behind the podium, and I took the mic, and I said, I've been gone for far too long, and I realized that I just can't do this on my own anymore. And tonight I came back to Christ, and the whole church broke out, which was amazing. Let the glory be to God. It was a testimony of one of His lost children coming home. Right at that time, after the service was over, somebody came to me, told me right at that time, when they first come in there, they had this anger. They walked in, there was all this anger just on their heart, and they said, I shouldn't be in the house of the Lord feeling this, which I believe is the exact place you need to be if you're going through a struggle. But he walked out, he prayed to try and get himself right to come back in, and he came back in. He said, right when he came in, I was giving my testimony, and as he walked back in, it hit him, boom, like a ton of bricks. It hit him. The Spirit just hit him, and I could feel the Spirit moving in that church after I gave that testimony, and the Spirit hit him, and he said, this relief came over him. The Spirit just lifted all this burden of anger and whatever it was weighing him down off of him. And he said that my testimony hit him. The Spirit hit him through my testimony, and I said, let the glory be to God, because that's what this testimony, I don't believe, was just for me. I believe it was for all of us, and I don't want this to be credited on me in any way, because God's the one that uses us to work, not us. We just are either willing participants or sometimes unwilling participants, but if He wants to do something with you, He's going to do it anyways, and we're all called to something in this. So all that said, that's just part of it. Unfortunately, I'm going to cut this short today because there's more to it. But I have to go get my children from the bus stop, and I'm a real person, so I have stuff to do. But I wanted to share the coming back, the leaving and coming back to Christ with you. And as I told you, the rest of my story of trying to let go of this alcoholism, and when I finally was able, that's the leading up to this. I let go of alcoholism a month ago. I haven't got drunk since the 4th of September, and now I'm leading this life mostly alcohol free, honestly. I mean, I cook with alcohol. I've had a sip of like touch my tongue to a sip of champagne, and then I had a glass of wine. And this is me being transparent because I'm still a weak sinner, honestly. In these past few weeks, but I'm not drinking, and I see even with the wine, like I have one glass, and it's like the Finding Nemo. For those of you that know Finding Nemo, when Bruce, he's in the meeting and talking about how clean he's been from eating fish for a while, and Dory gets a bloody nose, and he gets a taste of that blood, and he's like, ooh, that's good, and I gotta have more now, right? So I even see that with just a couple sips of champagne or a glass of wine. It's that's picking up your cross and carrying. That's denying yourself on a daily basis, which we're all called to do, because we're all sinners. We're all going to continue to fall. But we got to figure out a way to overcome it and pick ourselves up and try to be as obedient to God as possible, because that is the ultimate goal. We're not going to lead perfect lives. The goal is to strive for Christ's perfection in this world, even though we're sinners and we're going to fall. And if God made us perfect, we would be perfect. But God made us perfectly how He wants us. And since the fall of man, there's always been a struggle. That's what we're called to do. We're called to struggle through this. And those that persevere and make it to the end and keep God in their lives and in their hearts, up to the end, they're the ones that will make it into the kingdom of heaven. And that is the ultimate goal with these posts, okay? To show you that as a human in today's day and age, as in our weakened state of sin, that we can still persevere, we can still push forward and encourage. I am here to encourage you, and I realize I didn't pray at the beginning of this, and I should have, because I wanted the glory of this to be to God. I felt rushed, and next time I need to do more of a God's time kind of thing in this and not get overwhelmed with time frames. So, and I didn't post anything yesterday, and I might not be able to post every day. I'm realizing now. It might only be once a week at some points, but I will post, even if I don't get any response. This is my testimony. This is a story of overcoming sin in my life, and you can see with me as I'm human. We will keep doing this and keep going forward and keep trying to overcome sin together. And I hope if you want, you post things that tell me that if the Lord's speaking to you in a way where you need to overcome something. Send me a message on YouTube. Leave me a message and tell me your story. Tell me how you are overcoming this sin in your life and how it's a struggle. Because if we need to encourage each other, confess to each other. God gave us a gift of confession, not to persecute each other, not to weaken ourselves, but to uplift each other, to help each other overcome these things. Confession to Him for forgiveness. Confession to each other to build strength in each other. So, feel free to leave comments. Feel free to even get on there and tell me how, you think I'm just the most horrible person in the world. Whatever you feel. Speak. You have a voice. And let God convict your heart in all the things that you have to say. And I'll pray now. We'll pray now together. Lord, we pray that you use this. You use what I've said, that you would have spoke through me in this, and that you would convict my heart if I am leading in a wrong direction, but that you would bring me closer in relationship to you through this, and others in relationship to others and to you through all this, Lord. We pray humbly before you in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, our bridegroom, who we want to have such an intimate relationship with, that we are walking in His love, and that we are loving each other, and as sinners we are letting go of these sinful things in our life piece by piece, because we're building strength with each other, Lord. So I pray that you would just come into us, be in us, knock on that door. Let us open it and bring you in so that we can be in the most intimate of relationships with you, God. Pray all this in Jesus' name. And remember, reach out on this Facebook page, or YouTube page, and reach out to me, reach out to this page, and tell me what your struggle is. Tell me what you need encouragement in, and I'll say a prayer right there for you, and I would ask that you pray for me, because I need it. So that's my 50 minutes today, a little bit shorter than last time, but I'm here for y'all if you need me. I love you, God bless you, and till next time.